Today we are in the fourth part of our Trading Best series, and if you don't know what that means, let me kind of set up with the language that we've been using every time that we've been talking about this series. So here we go. Being the best employee or the best student, having the best marriage, being the best parent, or having the best career puts us on a merry-go-round of best, but it is far from a place of joy on that playground. Whatever best is, it isn't easily achievable, sustainable, or definable. Show me someone who is best at anything, and I'll show you someone who most likely lacks happiness and peace. Best consumes the 18-year-old valedictorian as much as the 52-year-old CEO. No matter our demographic, best fuels our addictions and our affairs, our dysfunctions and our disappointments, our anxieties and our ambitions. And then we've been using this imagery of a merry-go-round, right? That it can be merciless. It comes with crushing comparisons, exhausting expectations, ceaseless striving. And some of us have fallen off the playground of best, right? And you can have the scars to prove it. But then there's some of us who have not yet fallen off the playground, the merry-go-round of best, but you want off because you're starting to get sick of it. You're starting to be able to just feel it wearing you down. And then we've been talking about this series with these lines: the merry-go-round of best is not God's best for us. So what would it look like to trade best for healthy? That's what we've been talking about. So today we're going to be talking about being a healthy parent, trading this concept of whatever we think it is best to be parent for a biblically and healthy, balanced perspective of parenting. And I've got to be honest with all of you, I'm a little bit intimidated to preach this message today because, as Pastor Scott would say, I'm a fellow traveler in this, right? As dad to the pink life, my three daughters, 13 years old almost, 11 and 7 years old, I am still journeying what does it mean to be a healthy parent. So you might want to ask my kids if what I'm about to say is actually going to be coming true. So let me just say this right out of the gate. If you are here today and you are not a parent, all right? Or maybe, just someday you want to be a parent. Maybe your kids have aged out of this particular message, but listen, don't check out on me, okay? Because what I'm going to share biblically really has to do with all of us and our relationships in general, not just specifically parenting. But there is a portion of, if you do not have kids yet, and you may one day, you might want to just file this away for yourself, all right? Or I need to talk with you specifically about one huge point that I need to make about parenting that involves people who are not yet parents or who are not parents, okay? So before I get started, I want to celebrate something with all of you today. So Pastor Doug and Amy Melder this past Wednesday became parents again. So here's a picture of Jansen Phillip, little baby boy. So congratulations, Doug. Another boy added to the Blue Life, man. Go for it, number 4. Now, okay, here we go after that celebration. How many of you, by a show of hands at all of our campuses, how many of you watched the Super Bowl last Sunday? Okay, all right. Many of us have done that. Tough loss for Seattle fans, right? That last play will go down in history, but I'm not talking about that. How many of you watch the commercials? Right? I love watching Super Bowl commercials, but let's not talk about the nationwide commercial, everybody, okay? Very depressing, yes. But did you notice this year how family-friendly the commercials were, the majority of them? Did you notice how many of them were going after families, parenting, dads, this kind of thing? I was like, wow, Erica, they're really going after families, like in a good way, right? So Nissan and Toyota, they had these dad commercials that made me cry, right? And Microsoft, commercials to really make us think in this way. And my goal for today is not to make us cry, but I want to help us think a little bit differently about the importance of healthy parents as it pertains to being a healthy church. And so in preparing for today, I've prayed a lot because honestly, the fellow traveler thing has been getting to me. right? I'm a fellow dad trying to figure this out. And so I've been praying a lot. I've searched the scriptures. I've read several different articles. I have read one book that I want to really recommend to all of you guys on parenting. It's right in your notes there, and you'll see it coming up on your screen. The Sticky Faith Guide for Your Family by Dr. Kara Powell. And I put a website in your notes there too, because if you want to dive in to some great research on what it is like to help, with practical tools to make your kids' faith stick when they leave your home, when they go off to college, when they might go to the military, whatever, this is a great book for Christian parents to have beside your Bible. Because here's why. Watch this. Based off of Fuller Youth Institute's research, over 6 years of 500 plus high school and college students, they estimate, get ready, that 40 to 50% of high school graduates will fail to stick with their faith. That's staggering, right? But you may have heard different statistics thrown out there, but we could go all, how dare the culture do this to our kids? But instead of doing that, Fuller then went on the offensive, and they interviewed these young adults as to why did their faith stick? What was it that made their faith stick? And then they also interviewed their parents. So this is a really great resource. And here's a fun little fact for all of us at Northway. We had a dozen or so of our kids, students from Northway, participate in this research. And so they're in this particular study. So I could go 1,000 different directions with this message today. But what I've decided to do is share with you what is hopefully very practical teaching from the scriptures, what we can do as parents and what we can do as a church to help the next generation's faith stick. Okay, you with me on that? And you see on your outline that I've put, at the front of all of these, healthy parents and then like an action step or what we can do. See, this could apply to all of us. So I could say healthy followers of Christ do this. Healthy Christians do this, okay? So 5 different things here I want to just pull out of the scriptures. Healthy parents, number 1, healthy parents model a growing relationship with God, right? And some of you are like, yeah, Captain Obvious. Right, if you want the kids' faith to stick. Yeah, but hold on. We really need to stop here. See, as a youth pastor for 10 years, I often said this phrase to my adult volunteer leaders. You can't give what you don't have, right? Think about it. Because if you want your kids, their faith to stick, then they're watching you, right? And if you don't have a growing relationship with God through Jesus, then you can't just magically expect that it's going to appear for your kids or for the next generation who's watching you. If you want your kids' faith to stick, then you need to have and own your own faith and grow in your own faith. And a baseline of text that I want to use for us today, overarching all of us, is Deuteronomy 6. We looked at this text about a month ago in our Simple series, but I want to bring it back to us right now. Moses is leading the people of Israel, the children of Israel, right? And he comes right after receiving what God has given to him in the form of commandments, and he then says this to the people. Look at this. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. These commandments that I give to you today are to be on your hearts. So let's just stop there for 1 second and soak that in. Because this is where healthy parenting begins, right here. We've got to stop there. Do every one of us, do you value and love God with a passionate heart? See, do you foster your relationship with God? Because it's important if you want your kids' faith to stick. See, whenever I fill out maybe a profile on social media or maybe a bio for maybe a speaking engagement or something like this, I will often write in this order things about myself, right? It's always awkward, but here's what I do, all right? So, I am a disciple of Jesus. I am a husband of Erica. I am a dad to the Pink Life, and then I am a pastor at Northway Christian Community, specifically to the Wexford campus. And I do that in order, that way. Why? because it helps remind me that my relationship with Jesus has to be the first one that I tend to for the other ones to be successful and healthy, right? If I want to be a healthy husband to Erica, then my relationship with Jesus needs to be healthy. If I want to be a healthy dad to the Pink Life, my 3 daughters, then I need to have my relationship with Jesus centered and then show them how I love their mom, right? If I want to be a healthy pastor, you see this, right? So I need to have my relationship with Jesus be healthy, my relationship with my wife be healthy, my relationship with my kids be healthy to be a healthy pastor for you, right? So my question today for us is this. Are you intentional about fostering your relationship with God? Yours. Okay? Are you intentional? And then does the next generation see you doing that? Do they see it? See, we're intentional about so many different relationships that we have, work and play and friends and different things like this, but are we intentional with the one relationship that can truly transform us to be better, right? So, are you spending time with God? Are you listening to God, and are you speaking to God in prayer? Are you soaking in and transforming your mind with the truth of His Word, the promises that He says about you? See, these are what we talked about in the first week of this series, right? So these rhythms that we need to have as daily part of our life. See, that's where healthy parenting begins. Why? Because of this, right? You cannot pass on what you do not possess. Right? You will reproduce who you are and what you are. So now, when Moses sort of put that in place, now he continues in Deuteronomy 6. Look at this. Now, impress them on your children. So you talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Everyday moments he's talking about. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. Now, get this picture of the people of Israel, right? Think headbands, right? Think sweatbands almost, okay? That they would have had so that when they looked up, there would have been a box on their forehead that they would see the scripture, the command of God that they were memorizing or whatever it would be, right here. And then imagine a bracelet on there that there's a little box that they would see the command of God, right? They would write these things on their door frames. They would put them on the gates to their homes to remind themselves and to those who were looking on that they were truly following Yahweh, the one true God. So, what are the modern ways today that we can do this? That we can write these on our hands and on our foreheads in 2015? Now, for parents who are out here, in an effort to partner with you, if you have kids who are in pre-K and those who are in elementary, I want to remind you of something that we have here, a very practical tool to be able to do this because of the curriculum that we use. And it's called the Parent Q app. All right? It's the Parent Q app. You can literally find it right on your smartphone, okay? You can download it. There is all kinds of different things that your kids are learning in kids' church. And then what happens is that this provides you with simple cues throughout the week to remind you to just sort of time out and pause, right? And then make the most of these everyday moments like bedtime stories. Right? Like dinner table activities and conversations, car ride activities. Leveraging these everyday moments that we have to make God fun and creative to our kids. There's even podcasts on there for parents. There's even different articles that you can read to help us become better parents. Now, I understand that there are many of us in the room that are not parents. And so I want to remind you of a way that you can apply this to your life. What's the modern way for you? Well, I want to remind you about our Northway app. Did you know we have a Northway app, everybody? And you can download this. It has our sermons on there. It has links to YouVersion, which is a digital Bible that you can do daily Bible readings. And it's all there right on the app. There's links that are all there. A tool in 2015 that is exactly what Moses was teaching to the people of Israel. It's the exact same thing today. See, healthy parents, healthy Christians model a growing relationship with God. Now, let me show you something from this Fuller study, the Sticky Faith Research. One of the major findings was this, that parents are very hesitant to talk with their kids about faith at home. Here's why. Because they feel that they don't know enough. Anybody out there feel that? Feel like you don't know enough, so I can't talk with my kids. So the second thing that I think for healthy parents from the scriptures that we can see is that healthy parents say, you know what, I don't know. I don't know. And this is true of any person following Jesus Christ who's making disciple makers. It's not just parents. It's okay, everybody, to say, I don't know. And I've been coming back to this thought as I've been teaching a lot lately, because here's the deal. For whatever reason, when it comes to making disciple makers of Jesus, either of our own children or of people in our circle of influence, we get nervous because we feel like we don't know enough. Therefore, we don't do it. See, we get nervous because we ourselves have doubts, right? And so therefore we don't talk about God. But I want to show you something from the scriptures, that God is not offended by your doubts. God is not offended by my lack of biblical knowledge. Think about this. Does he want you to know him more? Absolutely. That's not my point. But it's a marathon, everybody. It's not a sprint to the finish. See, we're on a journey with learning more about God. Now, even today's best and brightest biblical scholars are like kindergartners when it comes to the vastness of knowing about God. And if they're worth their salt, they'll tell you that, right? See, here's the thing. I want you to rest in the fact, church, that you are not going to know everything about God. Why? Because if you did, then there's no need for God, right? I mean, who really wants to believe in a God that we can get our minds around, that we can get our hearts around? Because if you can do that, then you don't need God because you've become your own, right? So, Thomas in the scriptures, he's sort of become this famous doubter. The church history has given him a nickname. You may have learned it, right? Doubting Thomas. I think he gets a bad rap, okay? See, Thomas was one of the original 12 disciples. He was hanging with Jesus. He was there when Jesus pulled off these miracles. He was face to face with him. And he was there when in the first upper room scene, Jesus predicted his death and his resurrection. But Thomas missed the second upper room scene when Jesus actually appeared to the disciples as the risen Jesus. He was crucified, he was buried, he rose again on the third day, and Thomas, man, his iPhone reminder did not go off and he missed the meeting, okay? So he's not there. So the disciples come to him in John 20:25 and they say this to him, "We've seen the Lord." Right? But Thomas said to them, unless I see it in the hands of the marks and nails, unless I see in his hands the mark of the nails, and place my finger into the marks of the nails, and place my hand into his side where he was speared, I will never believe. Thomas, one of the original disciples, in front of all the other disciples says, I doubt it. I will not believe it until I see it for myself. And then a week goes by, right? A week goes by and he's wondering if this is legit. And then on the 8th day, Jesus appeared to all of the disciples, and this time Thomas was with them. And do you think that Jesus came up to Thomas and said, "You moron, you idiot, I told you that"? No, he's not offended by Thomas's doubt. Look what he says. He says, "Put your fingers right here in the nail holes. Put your hand in my side." Thomas, stop doubting, but believe in me. See, Jesus was not offended by Thomas's doubt, right? Thomas then had a doubt. He expressed it. Jesus wasn't offended, and he then encountered him, and then he changed his mind, right? He transformed his mind. Now watch this. From the Fuller study, of the 50 to 60% of high school graduates whose faith actually stuck with them, one of the major findings was that they had parents and other Christian influences that allowed them to express their doubts without judgment. Kara Powell puts it like this in her book. She says, doubt is most toxic when it goes unexpressed. And so, parents, listen, let's be honest. Everyone in the room, we have doubts, right? Our kids have doubts and questions. And I beg you, please create an environment where you are not the Christian know-it-all in your home, because you don't know it all. That's impossible. You can't know it all. But allow them to express their doubts. You express your doubts to them. Because what happens is when a teenager is able to express their doubts to a caring adult without judgment, that causes them to lean in. It causes them to say, okay, I'm not crazy, right? I can work with this. Kara Powell, she put it like this in her book: what other Christian influence knows more than you on a particular topic? And I don't know about you, but my list of I don't know is really long. And I'm okay with the fact now in my Christian journey that I don't know everything. I'm not supposed to know everything. I'm comfortable now saying, you know what, man, that is a great question. And I don't know, I'm not sure, but let's find out together, right? Or, you know what, great question, man. And honestly, I don't think there's an answer to that. I don't know if there's a good answer to that. See, I believe that healthy parents, healthy Christians say, I don't know, but let's find out together. The third thing, healthy parents, healthy Christians are quick to apologize, all right? Quick to apologize. See, when you know that you've done something wrong to somebody, are you the type of person that you can't sort of humble yourself and you sort of keep it to yourself and you let things blow up because of you? You know you're wrong, though. See, we need to be the type of parents that when you know that you've done something wrong, we need to model proper forgiveness, proper confession. See, when you shoot your mouth off in anger and your tone is completely out of line, then you need to go back quickly. And to be able to say to the person that you've offended, I'm sorry, I apologize, and I ask you for your forgiveness. Ephesians 4:31, look at this. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, follower of Jesus. See, along with malice, be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another. Watch this, as God in Christ forgave you. And James 5:16, I love how the Message paraphrase captures this. And there's a word that I really want to focus on. Make this your common practice. See, this takes practice. Confess your sins to each other. Pray for each other so that you can live together whole and healed. Who does not want to live whole and healed, right? But it takes practice. So in our home, let me just give you an example of what we've been trying to practice with this. Whenever somebody in our home, is sort of caught sinning against another, we're called onto the carpet, so to speak, right? Our practice has been to try to teach and model to go immediately back to that person and apologize. But it's not the general apology, right? Have you ever done this, or have you ever seen this where it's the, I'm sorry, and then you run, right? Have you ever done that? You've seen your kids do that, right? Well, we're trying to model in our home that confession needs to be specific, both to God and to each other. So what we're trying to teach here is these three words: I'm sorry for. And then you get specific with it. Well, what did you do? Well, have you ever been in those moments where you're somebody apologizes to you and they really don't know what they're apologizing for? You can see right through it, right? So we're trying to model, even then, when a person apologizes specifically, then the person who's receiving the apology, what we're trying to teach then is three other words, right? And it's this. Okay, let me ask you this question. Usually when a person comes to you and apologizes, what do you say? It's okay. That's usually what we say. But it's not okay what they did to you. It's not okay what you did, right? So we're trying to teach three other words. I forgive you. I forgive you, right? That's what we're trying to model and to teach. Because when we model I'm sorry for and I forgive you, we're practicing Ephesians 4 reconciliation, right? Just as in Christ God forgave me, I will forgive you. It's hard to do. But I tell you, the more that we practice, healthy Christians are quick to apologize and forgive. The fourth one, okay? Track with me here. I could say so much about this one, but I'm just gonna trust that we're all gonna get this because I think we're all there. Healthy parents create boundaries. Healthy parents create boundaries for themselves, like we looked at in week 1, and for their kids. See, in today's fast-paced culture, just because your kids can doesn't mean they should. Right? Just because there's an opportunity that arises doesn't mean that they have to do it, right? Just because the technology exists doesn't mean that they constantly have to be on it. Same with us, right? Now, I chose this next verse, this passage very carefully because this is where the little kids are trying to get to Jesus. All right? And the disciples are like, well, Jesus, you're way too important to be, ministering and hanging out with these kids. But then Jesus has some words for his disciples, and he says this in Matthew 19, whoa, guys, let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for to such belongs the kingdom of heaven. And parents, I want to humbly submit a question to all of us. Could it be that we are hindering our children from coming to Jesus by the multiple after-school activities, the multiple sports and practices, the weighted classes, the pressure of the best GPA, you vicariously living your dreams through your son and daughter? Could it be that you are measuring your parenting success by your kids' medals and trophies and their report cards? Could it be that we are hindering our kids from coming to Jesus? See, I'm guessing that if you're here today and you're not a parent, at some point you want your kids to have a sticky faith, right? If you're here today and you are a parent, at some point you want your kids to have a sticky faith. And my question for all of us is this: what is hindering your son or daughter from coming to Jesus? Take an honest evaluation of that. Have you created boundaries as the parent around your kids' lifestyle, around your schedule, to foster their faith in Jesus? Or have the plethora of options crowded out and choked out and hindered your kids from coming to Jesus? See, my number one job as dad to the Pink Life is to model a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. Then it's to love their mom really well. And then my third job is that I would foster their relationship with Jesus Christ. Therefore, in our home, we only have one rule for our girls when it comes to activities. One activity outside of church and school. Only one. And I know that might sound absurd to some of you, and that's fine. You can have your opinion. But here's what I know. Here's what Erica and I both know. There is so much that will compete for our children's attention and affection. And my hope and my prayer is that their faith will outlast the ability to play basketball, the ability to play violin, all of these different other activities. But here's what I'm smart enough to know, and I know that you are as well, that I have to be intentional as their parent to foster it in them until they can do it for themselves and they want to do it for themselves. Healthy parents, I believe, create boundaries, and they do not hinder kids from coming to Jesus. Lastly, and this is the huge point for all of us, this is the point I want to make about parenting that involves those who are not parents, okay? Number 5, here it is. Healthy parents foster intergenerational Christian community. Okay, watch this from the study of the young adults who their faith stuck with them. A large portion of them accredited to the fact that they had, watch this, 5 or more trusted Christian adults who spoke into their lives. That's huge, everybody. See, we're talking about 5 adults who know your kids' names, who are praying for them regularly, who occasionally show up to their gymnastic meets or their baseball tournaments. 5 adults whom you have vetted as trusted and caring people who can form somewhat of a net a web of support to catch your kids when they fall. Not if, when they will fall. Hebrews 10 puts it like this: let us consider how the whole church is to stir one another up to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, all the more as we see the day drawing near. See, I want to encourage kids in our church for their faith to stick beyond graduation. And so parents, I encourage you to get your kids involved in intergenerational community. Serve with them in the church and outside the walls of our church building. See, Erica and I, we're taking this one so seriously because we see the lasting impact that Erica is taking our oldest, Madeline, almost 13, on her first mission trip together with other caring adults. Because when we do things like that and provide things like that, it will cause her faith eventually one day to stick. Parents, I implore you, please invite other Christians to walk with you and to walk with them, and so that they can speak into their lives. But here's the thing, parent, you have to create room for this, because this doesn't just magically happen. You have to be intentional, and we as a church have to be intentional as we make disciples of the next generations. This is why we are one church in multiple locations made up of all generations. That's why we are. We're all together freeing people to follow Jesus. See, it's so important for us to recognize the all and how much influence we can have on the next generations. If you are here today and you are serving the next generation of our church, I just want to say to you, thank you. Honestly, thank you. If you are here today and you are serving kids who are not your own, I want to say to you, thank you. See, when you serve in the nursery, when you serve in our kids ministry, when you serve in our student ministry, do you realize that you are making it more likely that their faith is going to stick in the future? See, healthy parents realize that it takes an entire village to raise their children. I am so thankful for the extended family that I have that are following Christ and that they speak into my daughter's lives. I am so thankful for the ladies of Northway like Sherry and Lee and Maggie and Laurie and Carla and Michelle and so many more for speaking the truth of God into my daughters, because that's what Erica and I are trying to do. And here's the funny thing about it, right? See, Erica and I could be teaching the exact same truth into our daughters' lives, and it just doesn't seem to be sticking in their head or their heart, right? But if Miss Sherry says it, right, then all of a sudden, right, it clicks, right? See, and you know what? I'm very thankful for that, because a healthy church is built upon the truth that it takes a village to raise our kids. So parents, from this book, Sticky Faith, here's just a very practical question that you could ask, right? So if you were to ask your kids, so who are the adults in the church that you like? Who would you guess that they would say? Why don't you just ask them, right? And then the follow-up is, how can you involve these adults into your family life? Okay, everybody, so quick review. 5 things that healthy parents, healthy followers of Christ do. They model a growing relationship with God. They say, I don't know. They're quick to apologize. They create boundaries both for themselves and their kids. And then they foster intergenerational Christian community. Now let me close with a couple application questions for us today. How are we going to apply what it is that we just heard to our daily life tonight or tomorrow? Okay? Think about this. What's the one thing? What's the one of those 5 points? What's the one that sticks for you? That sort of in that moment, God, nudged you and said, you need to pay attention to that one. And then here's the follow-up question to that. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about what God has revealed to you? See, church, that's the transformation process. What are you going to do with God, with what he has revealed to you? Are you going to obey it or not? Are you going to do something about it or not? Because when we obey what it is God has revealed to us, that's when our lives, that's when our families become transformed. And so what's your one? And what are you going to do about it? Why don't you stand up with me at all of our campuses, and at the other campuses, I'm going to hand it off now to your campus pastor to pray for you.